I still think about it a lot. That one steak, just the one steak.
The one that I made?
Yeah, just the one.
Oh yeah, no, I only made one. And the thing is that I've made it multiple times because that was technically my dish to get on the first time. I kind of squeezed it in there, but yeah, throwing it back in the oven to thinking that it wasn't yet perfect was definitely a mistake.
Brien O'Brien.
What's up, dude?
How are you?
I'm well. How you been?
Bro, life has been crazy since the last time you saw me.
It's been a few years.
Yeah. How long was our All-Stars now?
Was that 21?
Yeah, 3 years. Dude.
Yeah, man.
Time needs to slow the fuck down.
I know. It's a lot's happening, but
Yeah.
you know, we came out of COVID, so it was kind of a ramp up. But yeah, I'm excited to hear about what you got going on.
Oh, well, first we're going to talk about you. Oh, man. I still think about it a lot. That one steak. Just the one steak.
The one that I made?
Yeah, just the one.
Oh, yeah, no, I only made one. The thing is that I've made it multiple times because that was technically my dish to get on the first time. I kind of squeezed it in there, but yeah, throwing it back in the oven to thinking that it wasn't yet perfect was definitely a mistake.
Let's slow down real quick. Okay, so I didn't know this either, but we're jumping ahead because we're skipping what I like to use as my first.
First of all, thanks for having me, buddy. Oh. Thanks for having me on your pod.
I appreciate you being here. I also appreciate you doing this so early in the morning. I feel like you and I on a podcast should be like drinking a nice glass of wine and like doing this really chill.
Well, I mean, I listened this morning to you and Adrian's most recent, and you guys were doing shots the whole time. I was like, that sounds awesome. I want to do shots during our podcast.
That was a fun one. That was back when I was doing them in person, which I'm striving to get back to, but
financially, you had a beautiful studio.
Yeah, financially that was expensive, and
I'm sure it was.
I wasn't getting sponsors, and I wasn't getting money. So,
podcast game's a difficult one.
Yeah, especially when the algorithms you're fighting with are, like Mr. Beast and shit.
Yeah, I thought your clips were really good though. So, I thought the algorithm, I was seeing it all. Maybe it's just because I was a fan of the content.
Well, the new team I got is doing a really great job with shorts and clips and all kinds of stuff. So we're moving in the right direction for sure.
That's good. That's awesome.
But but before we get going too far, since we were on the topic of your steak, I didn't know because I couldn't watch. Season 8 was 2 seasons after my season and was it was like I tried watching one episode of MasterChef Junior and I just started crying. The PTSD was real. I didn't know.
I feel it, brother.
Yeah. So I haven't watched your season, but I know. Okay. So I noticed that your all-star audition dish was a filet. What was the idea behind auditioning with like the same dish?
Fantastic question. So it's actually a very funny story. So as you know, my name is Brien O'Brien and I love my name and a lot of other people like my name too. And I just enjoy talking. I mean, as you can imagine with a name like Brien O'Brien and interacting with people every day like I do, it gets talked about a lot. Oh, your parents really named you that. I get it. I've heard it all, right? But it's kind of my calling card to an extent. And so I wanted on MasterChef that it be known that is my name. MasterChef's a first name show. Derrick, Adam, Brian. I didn't want to just be Brian. There have been other Brians, and I'm sure there'll be Brians in the future, right? But there is only one Brien O'Brien. So my idea was to try to like outsmart production, which you being in it, that's kind of the name of the game and being on MasterChef. And so I named my first dish Filet O'Brien. And that was literally just so I could throw it, and that was my name. Now, you didn't watch, but in my audition, Gordon gave me shit for that. He's like, who are you, Escoffier? Who cares what your signature dish is? Now, but again, production behind the scenes is have a story for this dish, have a background. And I'm like, all right. So So I made filet mignon. They had 2 steak options that I could choose from cut wise, a filet or ribeye. Today I would probably have chose a ribeye because I much prefer that cut of beef. But when you're cooking for someone like Chef Gordon Ramsay, you want, he loves a good filet. So I chose a filet. And on the first audition in season 8, I overcooked it also. I mean, it wasn't perfectly cooked by any means. If you go back and look, it was pink, not red, but maybe a little bit more medium than I would have preferred. Now, when it came to coming to Back to Win It season, they just had me list some dishes. I listed some of the same ones that I did the first time around, and they didn't really catch that. And who was I to remind them of that? So I just literally cooked the exact same dish, and I overcooked it yet again.
With a steak, obviously, I think the cook is preference. I have different preferences for different steaks. I like a ribeye medium rare. I like a filet medium. I think you actually get more flavor out of a filet when it's medium.
I prefer a filet tartare. Like, I don't even want, you can take a filet mignon and just serve it tartare. That's almost my preferred way of having that particular cut of beef. I'm a ribeye guy over charcoal. That's how I like my steak.
I have to say, I admire the thought process and the idea to try and outsmart production. Although it's a tough gamble. That's like going to the roulette table and trying to outsmart the roulette table.
But it's almost like having some like special trick in my back pocket that they also could capitalize on, right? The name Brien O'Brien it's a TV name. So not only did they go with it and allow that to be the case, but when I got called up for a mystery box, whatever, top 3, Christina Tosi said, the guy's so nice they named him twice, Brien O'Brien. And when I won, they didn't just say Brien won, the Brien O'Brien. And so my plan worked brilliantly.
Yeah. I mean, dude, it is a good name. It rolls off the tongue.
I appreciate that.
It's been a rough 6 months. I got divorced, so I'm co-parent.
Oh, did you really? I'm sorry to hear that.
No, it's okay. It was my call. I mean, there's definitely parts that are a bummer to it, but anyway, having the dog by myself, and you realize where the other person in the relationship, where their strong suits were and where their weaknesses were.
Where they filled holes that maybe you hadn't picked up on when it was all happening.
Yeah. And yeah, so I'm realizing a lot of those, and it's it's stressful.
Totally.
I can definitely see why some people stay in marriages that they don't like, because there's a lot of shit that you got to do by yourself.
Totally.
And one of them is parenting a dog by yourself that you always had a partner to do it with. Anyway, last night I went out, so I moved downtown and I bought
LA, right?
Yeah. I also live in Dallas. I go back and forth. But when I moved downtown, before I made the decision, I was like, I need to go walk around downtown. I need to check it out.
I'm a big walker. I think when I walk, that's what I do.
Yeah. So I just wanted to see, like, is this really somewhere I can live? Because I haven't lived in a downtown in a long time. And so I was walking around and I noticed that there was taco carts and there was hot dog carts, and there was like this little lady with just a table and a basket full of croissants and all this food around downtown, and then amazing pizza places. And we got a Silver Lake ramen and all kinds of no smash burgers. There's no smash
That's
burgers.
crazy.
It's crazy. In the entire downtown, there's no smash burgers. So literally the day I signed the lease, I ordered a cart. I ordered a smash burger cart. Got it custom built, and I picked it up last Saturday. And last Saturday, I literally, like, I worked Friday, woke up Saturday morning, drove down to the place to pick up the cart, and then I went to Restaurant Depot, picked up a bunch of ingredients, came back to my place, prepped all day, rolled that cart outside, there was two clubs that are literally walking distance from each other that are below my building. I just literally rolled the cart out front of my building, set it up, cranked up the heat, and sold out.
You smell it from blocks away.
Dude, it's so awesome. So I've literally in 4 nights paid my rent and
no shit,
just having a blast. Just like, so anyway, I was out to like, there was a Kaylani listening party last night, which you probably don't know who she is. I don't know who she is. Millions of people know who she is. And she was at the club downstairs last night and there was a line around the block. And I was like, so I rolled out there and I was out super late last night. So
that's so funny because like I've been dating this pastry chef who's a vegan leaning, mostly vegan, but she's kind of gotten me to do the same thing for the most part. But I'm still obsessed with smashburgers. And I found this, I live in Sacramento and we go to the farmer's market every Saturday. And there's this food truck, Senior Burger, best smashburger I've ever had. Like, I can tell he only cooks it on one side, but like, yeah, it doesn't, I guess you technically don't need to flip it if it's cooked. Like, it's so crispy. And I follow him any event he goes to. I go and I follow him and I eat his smash burgers. And that's like the one thing that I've been like, every week I have a smash burger on Saturday morning. Am I hungover a lot of times? Of course I am. But smash burgers are just, they're the shit right now.
Yeah. Dude, are
you doing onions?
Yeah, so what I do is I smash the burger in, I get my press, I smash it in, and the side that's crispy, I don't season because that's the top and that's where the cheese is going. And the cheese the cheese is already salty.
Yeah.
So I take so I smash it in, the side's getting crispy. On the top side, the side that's not cooking, I season that with my seasoning. And then next to it, I have really thinly sliced onions and I drop those on the grill top.
As thin as you can slice, a mandolin.
Yep, with a mandolin on the minimum setting.
Yep.
I mean, you can see through these things.
Exactly.
And then once it's really crispy, I scrape it up and I flip it over onto the grilled onions and I press it into the onions.
Yep.
And then I drop the cheese and I hit it with a little dome and then just special sauce on the bun and then that's
you got
it.
Like a brioche. What kind of bun you working with?
I'm trying to find a good bun. I am literally just a basic bun.
This is just a little fun hobby for you. Here's this is one thing that this smashburger thing does that 100% you could do is they brand their buns.
Yeah. So I have a brander and I can't get
it. Why is that not shocking to me?
But it won't work. I don't know how to get it to work.
Oh, really? Just throw a torch. Just torch it.
Oh, I have. I literally put it under fire for like 5 minutes and hit the button and it didn't do it.
Because it's this guy has a couple different renditions. One's the after school, which is cooked in mustard and has Pringles on it. That's probably my favorite one. The Pringles I don't care about, but the cooked in mustard really just takes it to the next level.
I've heard that's an In-N-Out thing.
Maybe.
I've heard that's an In-N-Out thing, at least for their Flying Dutchman.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, like Big Mac sauce has mustard, not ketchup, and so I think there's just a lot of burger sauces that lean mustard and just burger stuff in general that lean mustard that a lot of people just don't get or understand.
Yeah, my special sauce is actually more mustard than ketchup.
Yeah, right.
Because I feel like people are just scared of mustard because they've usually maybe tried it by itself, and it's like,
mustard gets a bad rap, bro.
Yeah,
mustard's the shit.
Yeah, and it's important.
It is.
It's that sneaky acid that's like helping the burger.
Acid is such an underappreciated like flavor component.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me about you got a girl you're going basically vegan for?
Well, I mean, so all right. So I'm a documentary guy. Okay. So like I'm Mr. Meat Eater. Like I'll say that, but like She got me to watch a couple documentaries. One of them literally took 3 college baseball players, like D1 college baseball players. And this is so ridiculous that I'm talking about this. They literally tested their boners based on what they ate. Okay, so they literally get this little 2-ring device that they have to strap to their thigh and go to sleep with. And the first test, they all 3 have different burritos. One has a chicken burrito, one has a steak burrito, and one has a vegan burrito. And then they measure how their boners interact in the night. Okay. And then the next day they have the same burrito, but instead of having the 3 different like meats, all were plant-based. And there was like a 500% increase on like the boner health based on that. I was like, okay, like you've caught my attention, right? And so I started to, let's just say, experiment on that, and I saw some positive results, let's just say. Also recently, Netflix came out with a document. I can't believe I just said that. Netflix just recently came out with a documentary about gut health. And that one was good too, because it talks about not like being vegan, but like eating a diverse amount of different fruits and vegetables. They say the target is to eat 30 different fruits and vegetables in a 7-day window. It sounds like a lot. It's really not. If you're cooking at home and you're using good, fresh, seasonal ingredients, you're probably hitting that 30 and you don't even know it. Most people I'd say aren't doing it, but if you're cooking a lot at home, you tend to. Like I cooked a curry the other day that had like 12 different fruits and vegetables in the dish. That's almost halfway there in one meal. So those 2 things I started to like pay attention to. I don't love working out. I like go on hot boy walks every morning, but like I don't really sweat. I've lost 10 pounds in 2 months just by eating differently. And so like it worked, and I feel better. And when I do go jog, like my stamina is significantly higher. So I'm buying in, but I have my cheat days. I love me some, like today I'm going to go golfing. I already know I'm going to get a BLT. So there's going to be some meat there, but you know, I'm just trying to be a little healthier. I turned 40 this year.
Wow.
So trying to like, you know, rein it in a bit.
Well, let's break this down for 2.
It's a lot.
2 things. I do think that, well, the first thing I want to say is I'm actually, and you might maybe agree with this, since becoming a chef and literally cooking every fucking day, like I had to take a vacation on a cruise to make sure that I couldn't cook. You know, like to be able to not
cook,
because they won't let you,
not allowed to.
Yeah, they won't let you down in the kitchen. So that was my way of turning it off. Okay, because if I go to a friend's house, if I go, like, I'll end up on their grill or I'll end up in their kitchen cooking something or taking over, because it's just like not out of anything other than like the whole group is around. And I see everyone like waiting for dinner, and I'm watching someone cook, and it's like I could just step in and make this better for everybody real quick. Like I don't mean to do it, but it's like I'm just that guy. I want to make sure everyone's having the best experience in their life at all times. So I'm the word diet. Like I'm over that, because everyone's like, well, I don't want to go on a diet because that means I'm not eating delicious food, and it's like, no. Somewhere along the line, we decided that a diet is eating good food and not processed food. And it's like, we need to like really call the American diet what it is that it's shit and it's a lot of processed stuff. And and eating good food is not a diet. Eating good food and healthy food is just eating normal.
I would say that's correct.
Now, the other thing I would say is I think also you have to eat to like your body and your body type and your blood type. I think that's important. And also your amount of working out. Because I tried vegan for like 3 months, gained the most weight I've ever gained in my life.
Did you really?
Yeah. I got above 160. And for my body type and my size, like 160 is not good. I tried vegetarian. I did like just full on like Mediterranean, pescatarian, whatever. And the diet that worked for me most is carnivore. And interesting enough that you talked about the boner.
Dude,
because
it's
hold
so,
on.
I watched this documentary with a girl, and like she put it on, and
Yeah.
so like
So what
I scoffed at it at first. I swear I did.
No, but listen, but what I have to say about it is that for me, when I switched to just carnivore, my testosterone went up, my sex drive went up, my boners were more bonerific. Like,
sure, yeah.
So I think that I think also doing a test with D1 baseball players, like that's a tough one because they're already just like athletic. They're also young. Like,
I think the reason they did it is because they're healthy young men, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
you couldn't say that any other health reason would prevent them, like age or what have you. And I love to hear you say that about your experience with carnivore, because I've never done a carnivore diet. I've done water fasting. In fact, I grew up. My dad is pescatarian, but he doesn't like fish. So basically, he eats turkey and chicken, and that's basically it. And so my whole like upbringing, I ate a ton of vegetables and not a lot of like red meats. So when my dad would go out of town and my mom would cook, she would make, ground beef instead of ground turkey. And like, this was a big treat. So I love meat, and it was always like something that was a treat to me. And so like, I was always anti this vegan diet. And I bet you that if I did that whole carnivore experience like you did, I would probably experience something similar.
I tell everyone, like, look, like carnivore just sounds harsh, right? You say carnivore, and you're like, and then you're like, wait, what is? You're like, really, just meat? Like,
right.
A lot of people like can't process that. But when you like break down really what it's doing, it's a keto diet. It's like keto on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
There's vitamins in red meat that you can't get in other things in other diets. There's specific vitamins in red meat that are also really good for men and their testosterone. But I say to everyone, like, hey, like if you're willing to try a vegan diet, then why not try a carnivore diet for 2-3 weeks? Dude, I heard about it obviously on Joe Rogan because he does it, but that wasn't why I tried it. I had a couple stuntmen friends that they do it when they need to get in shape, and so I was like, all right, let me try it. So I did it for 21 days. Bro, I went from not having a six pack to my six pack fully coming back and just like shredded. And I actually cut down my workouts from 4 days to 3 days a week. So I was doing less working out and just eating carnivore and ended up in the best shape of my life. And I was like, this is amazing. So now what I do is I pretty much do like 80-20. Like for the long, like a long work week, I really stay strict on it. And then on a Saturday night, Sunday, I eat whatever and I enjoy some pasta and or some ramen. And then sometimes I'll eat whatever for a couple weeks. And then I'm like, okay, I need to just tighten up and go back on it. It's kind of how I roll.
I've been good at listening to my body. Like when my body needs meat, it tells me like, it's like, you need to have a steak, bro.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is with trying to eat vegan. It's staying away from starches, because that's all you want to eat, right? Pastas and that, because it satiates you. It's harder. And rice. I mean, rice sounds like a really healthy dish. It's just starch. Potatoes, like I love all that shit, but it literally is not doing your body the service that it needs. So I try to drink a gallon of water a day. I try to walk at least 10,000 steps a day. I intermittent intermittent fast, whereas I don't eat until noon and I stop eating at 8 p.m. Because I've been doing it well. I mean, when I drink, yeah, I'm gonna have late night, Jack in the Box,
Yeah, but also
but
as a chef working late, like how do you not eat after when you get off work? You haven't been eating. Like that's my biggest thing. I get off at 8, 9 o'clock at night, and I want nothing to do with food before then because I'm literally playing with it all day. And then on my drive home, I get home and I'm like, oh, now I'm hungry.
it's one of the things that people don't get with chefs is that we cook fine dining, like Michelin quality food all day long. And then as soon as we're off, the last thing that we want is that we want something greasy, something that's terrible for us, something that we can literally not get out of our car and get through some kind of a window, And
Right.
so they think that, oh my God, all you eat is this classic food. No, I eat shit all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's another
Not
thing.
as much recently, but
That's another thing where carnivore helped me is that like if I just eat steak and chicken and fish, then I'm not putting carbs in my body before going to bed, and I can eat that late night steak and be okay. So
you do have like the ability too that you can switch from fish to chicken to steak. You
Yeah.
can have a rotisserie chicken one day and then a ribeye the next. And so keep a little bit of a variety still. But you're depleting your body of those carbohydrates basically. And
Which
I've never tried carnivore. I'm sure I will at some point in my life.
yeah, I tell everyone try it for 2-3 weeks and see, but you got to be strict. You got to be strict,
Yeah.
and the other thing about it is that the first 3 to 5 days, you and that toilet are going to become best friends because
Dude, I did a water fast. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's you can't really leave home comfortably, right? Like you gotta like be close. So you have to plan accordingly. But it's not fun while it's happening, but like at the end, you're like, I'm sure my body's in better shape than it was prior.
Okay, well, we've had boner talk, we've had diet talk.
Yeah.
Let's get into the nitty gritty. The one thing I ask every guest, what was the thing? What was the moment? What was the catalyst in your life? Where were you before you auditioned for MasterChef? And what was that catalyst that got you to say, yeah, I'm going to try this. I'm going to go audition for MasterChef?
Yeah. It's a pretty funny story. So I had a marketing career. I went to college. I got a master's degree in human behavior. I graduated when I was 22, and I worked in advertising for most of my 20s. I also worked at the college that I attended for like 6 years as an academic advisor, and they paid for my master's degree. But it was a recruitment kind of sales position. So I was in sales and marketing all of my 20s, and it was fairly successful. I was traveling and it was fine, but I did not want to do that. I was bored. It sucked, And so I went to a career counselor. My mom was like, you should go to a career counselor. I was like, all right, sure. Why not? So I go to this career counselor. This woman put me through the ringer of all of the psychological tests that I studied in college. I have a master's in human behavior. So I studied all this shit 8 years prior. And at the end of the session, she basically said, your mind works like an engineer. You should be an engineer or an architect. I'm like, all right, well, she's like, also, you have an incredible level of confidence, maybe too high. And I was like, Daryl, I'll agree with you there. She's like, what do you want to do? What gets you excited? What do you do as a hobby? I was like, I like to cook. She's like, all right, well, why don't you want to pursue that? I was like, because there's no money in it. Well, yeah. If you're so confident, you can go make money in anything. Just go do it. I was like, all right. So I just started to try to figure out how to be a chef. And that involved just watching YouTube videos and cooking for my friends, right? Yeah. I lived in San Diego at the time. Now I was about 30 years old, and I went, it was in February or March of 2016, and I went to my annual pub crawl with my friends. This pub crawl started with my friend Tyler, my friend Chris and I, for Tyler's birthday, we wanted to put on a pub crawl. The first one, there was like 12 of us. It turned into an annual event that we had over 200 people. We had to like have like a charity that we associated with it because we were making so much money off the t-shirt sales, but it turned into this big thing. So we're on this pub crawl. I remember like it was yesterday. It was a third bar tap room in Pacific Beach in San Diego. And my friend Kim Snow, who is my friend to this day, she said, you know, MasterChef has auditions 1 week from today in downtown San Diego. I think you'd be perfect for the show. I dare you to go audition.
Dared you.
Again, I'm straight up dared me. There are witnesses. I remember it like it was yesterday. And me being at the third bar of the day and having way too much confidence, I decided to say, all right, sure. So I'd never seen the show before, not once. So over the next 7 days, I watched your season randomly. Because that was, the season after you is what was airing while we were filming. Right. But yours was the most recent season that I could go watch. So I went and watched your season and just kind of to prepare myself. I went to the show. I'd never been to an audition before in my life. It was the very first audition for that season. You know, they go all across the country. Very first stop was San Diego. I went. As you know, the audition process is basically there's a series of rooms. And if you graduate to the next room, that's a good thing. If you get shown the door that you came in through, generally not a good thing, right? So they go around and they're talking to all these people. You bring a dish. I present it. I talk to them. They talk to me for almost no time. So I'm like, all right, well, that's it for me. But it was just they knew quickly, and they just kept putting me into the next room, into the next room, into the next room. And I had never auditioned for a show before, but clearly I'm very good at it. 6 months later, I made the show. So it was an exciting opportunity. Obviously, you know, you experienced it. It was like, holy shit, this is an experience of a lifetime. And it was fun watching yourself on TV, but the whole filming process was not as fun. But yeah, I mean, it changed my life. After MasterChef, I sold my condo in San Diego and I moved to Napa to go to culinary school, Culinary Institute of America. Best culinary school in the country, in my opinion. Worked in some Michelin star kitchens, and that broke me. You know, that made me hate cooking. Working in the Michelin kitchens, culinary school was spectacular, but working in the worst environments I've ever worked in, it broke me, and I lost my love for cooking in a professional kitchen in a restaurant, specifically in a Michelin environment specifically. So since then, I've been trying to feel my way around the industry and life. I spent 5 years working at a winery in Napa. I was in the marketing team, sold wine, got certifications in wine. I was their event coordinator. So I still love food and I love cooking for myself. I do private events every once in a while when I enjoy the clientele, but I usually, at this point in my life, keep cooking to myself and my family and those that I love, because I don't know. I don't love just cooking for anybody anymore.
Yeah. Well, wow, we went on a journey there.
We did, didn't we?
Let's go back real quick. What was the dish? Man, there's so much I want to ask you about. What was the dish that you auditioned with? Not the steak for your apron, but when you went to the auditions.
My great-grandmother's meatloaf recipe. I named it the 4th generation meatloaf. It's the most simple meatloaf recipe, but the difference is how it's cooked. It's more of a braise technique. So it's like halfway submerged in liquid. And so the sauce, if you will, thickens, and the fat from the meat kind of it goes into the sauce. And so it's a very unique take on it, and I haven't really changed much. I doubled the amount of sauce I use in her recipe, but other than that, I've changed nothing. So I brought that meatloaf, homemade scalloped potatoes, and this like corn salad that's just like white corn, black pepper, a little bit of mint, I think I had bacon in it too. But yeah, pretty. I call it the 4th generation meatloaf.
Interesting. You like naming your dishes.
They wanted one. I feel like maybe I do like naming my dishes.
That's funny. That's funny. So after MasterChef, what do you want to name the Michelin star dishes that broke you? Was it something that, like, because look, it's no secret to anyone, you definitely have confidence, could be considered arrogance. The internet thinks you're very arrogant. Do you think that the Michelin star restaurants saw that and purposely tried to break you, wanted to humble you? Was it just a clash like oil and vinegar? Like, what do you think?
That's a great question. So there's kind of a lot of things that go into it. So first of all, I was put in this Michelin. So culinary school, the degree program that I chose to pursue was an associate's degree program that has an externship built into right in the middle of it. You do 1 year of class, externship, 2nd year, graduate.
That's sick.
So I came to culinary school with a master's degree. So I didn't need the associates. I came to learn the fundamentals of cooking. I came to learn the why, and I learned it. That's exactly what I learned. I got exactly out of it what I wanted. After the first year, the whole first year, after the first week, you're already starting to try to figure out where you want to do your externship. I knew I wanted Michelin. I wanted to do a Linea. I wanted the French Laundry. There's also Single Thread in Healdsburg, which is the single greatest meal that I've to this day ever had in my life. And they were all on my kind of list.
The very first
I was shooting for the moon. I'd never worked in a restaurant before in my life before culinary school. Let's just say that.
Oh, whoa. Not even like a bartender, server, busser, nothing?
Nope.
And
nothing,
you're trying to go just straight to the Linea or French Laundry.
Listen, I'm a confident guy.
You are an arrogant fuck.
So for the very first semester of culinary school, your cooking class is called Culinary Fundamentals. It's 5 days a week. It's 6 hours a day. It is the hardest class I've ever taken in college.
Wow.
And your chef instructor that you're assigned, it always works out that whoever you work under in Culinary Fundamentals, we call it fundies, you just idolize. I just so happen to be given the greatest chef of all time as my Culinary Fundamentals teacher, Chef Tom Wong. Now, Chef Wong used to be the executive chef of United Airlines at one point in his life. Like, this man has done everything, but really found a love for Napa and being a culinary school instructor at CIA in the middle of Napa Valley, and there he thrived. So I wanted to learn as much as I could from him, and the chef de cuisine at Bouchon Bistro, which is a 1 Michelin star Thomas Keller restaurant in Yountville, about a quarter of a mile down the street from the French Laundry, reached out to him and said, listen, I need good workers. I have been struggling to find people that are qualified to do the work that I need. Can you refer some people to me? Chef Wong knew that I wanted to work at the French Laundry. I wanted to do my externship at the Laundry, not Bouchon. I wanted 3 Michelin stars, not 1. So he sat me down and he's like, listen, you can get an externship at the French Laundry, but you're just going to turn potatoes for months. That's all you're going to do. You're not going to get a station. You're going to learn very little. Yeah. You're going to be in a great environment, but it's not going to be great. If you go to Bouchon, I will make the introduction. I will guarantee that you give a station. Now, again, I've never worked in a restaurant before. He's guaranteeing that I am not just going to be turning potatoes. I am going to have a station. And he delivered. So I said yes. I met with the CDC of Bouchon, went through the interview process. He hired me to be his extern. Now, this was in October of 2018. So it's harvest season. It's the busiest time of year in Napa Valley. And they gave me the oyster bar. The oyster bar was a station in and of itself. It's a front of house station. I was in the front, right next to the bar, shucking oysters. But most of my prep, because I had to do prep for 5 other stations, I had to make all of the stock for the entire restaurant. I had to brine all of the chickens for their rotisserie chicken, which is one of their most popular dishes. So I had a lot of other responsibilities.
And then you're just Bradley Cooper all night shucking oysters in the movie Burnt.
Dude, it's so funny that was like his punishment, because I did it and that's not that bad. It was all the other things that I had to do and just how people treated you. In those types of kitchens, in the busiest time of year, there is a lot of backstabbing. It's not as much of a team as you want it to be, because everybody is kind of in competition for the next level up. And so I've never been in an environment where it wasn't kind of team first. It was like, yeah, we'll like help you every once in a while, but there were very few people that didn't make it more difficult. In fact, some of the people that are in the highest positions at that restaurant today, some of them, not all, I didn't work with all of them, but were some of the worst people I've ever worked with in my entire life.
Yeah.
And so my goal for going to culinary school was to become a Michelin star chef. Once I saw that environment, I was like, I want nothing to do with this. This is the lack of professionalism that I experienced, sexism, racism, just degrading. And it wasn't everybody, but it was so bad from those that did give it that it just ruined it for everybody else. So the whole experience. But was I put into it to a station like that too early? Maybe. I could handle the work. It was the negativity. I mean, I watched a grown man cry and leave. They had to kick him out of the kitchen because he couldn't stop crying. It's just not an environment you should ever have to witness, but I did. It wasn't me.
But do you know what I'm hearing from all of this? What? Is that the universe, because the guy that you are, if you pursued this and became the Michelin star chef that you wanted to be, you could be the one that's changing the environment.
I totally agree with you.
Because
you're right. You're right.
I hear it all the time from the like when I get as a private chef, I'm solo for a lot of the time. But then we have big events at the house, and I get to hire chefs, and I've hired Adrian, and I anyone that's good, like the better they are, the top of the list, they are. I call them first. I love to get to work with other people. And then we get servers that'll come to the house. We have bartenders that come to the house and musicians that I have to feed because they're a part of the staff that night. And everyone comes back to the kitchen at the end of the night and they're like, "You're not like any chef I've ever met." And I'm like, "Well, thank you. But that's because it doesn't have to be that way." Right. You know what I mean?
Like, and I'm sure that there are Michelin kitchens and where everyone's having a good time at all times. And it was the busiest time of year. My last day before I quit that job was the 20th anniversary of that restaurant. So it's like, it was a very busy day and there's just a lot of backstabbing. And I remember a sous chef just decided he was really mad at somebody and just wanted to take it out on me. And he just let me have it. And there was I didn't do anything wrong. He just needed to lay into somebody. And I've like that's so unhealthy of a place where I'm just so mad I need to lay into somebody. You're under me. Stand here and listen to this. And it's like, this is bullshit.
Dude, it's crazy. And you're not wrong about the backstabbing. Anytime someone asks me, "Hey, have you watched The Bear?" I'm like, yeah, I tell them, one, the anxiety you're feeling when you're watching that's the anxiety you feel the entire time you're working in a restaurant kitchen. Like that's what it feels like. And then two, like that backstabbing is real. I've had it happen to me and I'm like, dude, the restaurant and the food going out should come first. Why are you like trying to sabotage my station? Like that only hurts everybody.
Yeah. And the guy before you does not prep for you, but if you don't prep, then you never hear the end of it. But then when no one does your prep, you just do it and you don't complain and you think doing it was tough. And to your point, somebody needs to kind of be the catalyst that changes that. I don't think I was up to that task, but like there's like how you're starting to see the culture of people respecting the kitchen more. You'll see restaurants that like buy a round of beers for the kitchen for like $10 or whatever. And like, so we're starting to see things move into that direction, and even the tipping culture is shifting a bit to be a little bit more kitchen focused, and that's a whole business process in and of itself that I love to learn about. But yeah, the restaurant industry is that far from perfect.
Yeah, dude, it's actually very fragile. We learned that during COVID.
Definitely.
It's one of and it's changing a lot, man. There's a lot of big chains and corporations that are going to be closing this year, and which I'm not against big chains closing. Like it's just like because it's so processed. Like Red Lobster, I'm like anyone that's like talking about Red Lobster closing, I'm like, have you ever fucking gone to one? It's disgusting.
It's so funny you say that. That was my birthday restaurant when I was a kid.
Right. Red Lobster. But there was a point in time where like Red Lobster wasn't bad. Like when you and I...
Red Lobster was on the higher end of things at one point.
When you and I were kids, Red Lobster was a treat. Now, it was awesome. Now it's a bottom of the barrel Cisco restaurant, and it's disgusting. So, but that's just... like all big corporations need to take a lesson from that and go, hey, why does it have to be all about like growing bigger and better every year? Like, why can't you find your sweet spot and just stay right there? Let's just stay right at the sweet spot. Like I saw it happen with Sprinkles cupcakes too, which now here's the deal. Their cupcakes are still fantastic. But they're not as good as the days where they just had the one Beverly Hills store and people would come and wait in line all day. I waited in that line for 3 hours for a cupcake, and there was massive celebrities standing in line that they wouldn't let celebrities cut the line. They're like, you got to stand in line with everybody else. That made it fantastic. And the love went into the cupcake. And then I saw them, they opened a few other stores. I was like, it's okay. Like we need one in Miami. We need one in Chicago. We need one in New York. And then now there's vending machines in the airport in DFW. And you're like, these are not good anymore.
Expanding a business, there's a lot of pros and cons, right? I mean, you're gonna lose quality. I don't care what product you're talking about.
Yeah.
When you start to mass produce versus little small batches, you're going to lose quality. It's just how it is. Right. I mean, in culinary school, there are different classes for bulk cooking and for individual plate cooking. They're different classes.
Yeah,
they're different things. But scaling properly, you talked about with Adrian. I listened to it this morning because I was like, I wanted to listen to somebody that I knew on the pod, and so I listened.
Well, and Adrian's had a couple. So if you saw, you saw the second interview. If you're talking about the one we did shots,
yeah, I could tell. Right,
yeah.
You guys are the gayest two people together that aren't gay. It's so funny. He's literally. I was listening to him feed you meat in a tube with your eyes blindfolded. It's just like this is 10 out of 10 podcasting right here. And Adrian's great. We had a great. In fact, Adrian's watching this. Hit me up, dude. He moved to Healdsburg in Napa in the Sonoma Valley. He said he was wanted to call me and chat. Never called.
No, okay. In his defense, right now, because he was in Dallas, and he had a client that he was cooking for in Dallas, and we had many chats about this job that he just took. And anyway, long story short, he did just take it, and they just opened. He's been so slammed. Like he called me the other day, and he was like, "Yo, what's up?" And I was like, "How's it going?" He was like, "Good." And I was like, is it everything you dreamed of? And he was like, yes and no, and I got to call you back. It was like, and then I haven't heard back from him. So he's slammed, dude. His new spot, I think it's really good for him. You just got to hit him up right now. He's busy. But anyway, go ahead.
No, I don't even know what was I saying.
You were talking about you were listening to him and I, and
he's like, you asked him what he wanted to do like after food, right? And I was like, that's a good question. And he's like, I've thought a lot about it. He's like, I'm pretty passionate about wine. I did that. That's exactly what I did. After I like fell out of food, I guess, for a bit, I fell into wine. Going to culinary school in Napa, that's just what tends to happen. You get pulled to different wineries. And I was actually a wine club member at this winery, and I saw they were hiring. They hired me just to help with periodic events, not even cooking, just to help pour, sell wine. And I worked there for 5 years and became a bit of a wine expert. But at this point, I'm like, I'm exhausted with wine. Like I don't even remember the last time I had a glass of wine. I have a wine collection, a stellar one at that, but I never drink it. But it's all about trying to figure out what I'm passionate about is food, but not necessarily cooking it, understanding it, talking about it. I've done a lot of restaurant consulting, but like I loved events. Doing events is fun for me. Being the event producer, whereas I'm hiring and I'm doing all of that. That's kind of what I've been doing of late. And I've found a lot. I've been just doing a lot of contract work, but I've found a lot. It's fun. And you get to go to these events and people are like, oh my God, you're on MasterChef. Yeah. Big deal.
Brien, I've got you figured out. And I didn't know we were going to have a little therapy session here today. But what you like is the every day being different. You don't like the repetition. You seem like I've heard you in three different jobs get burnt out at high points. And then you tell me about events, and the thing about these events is every one of them is different. Even if it's the same thing, you're doing it different. You're finding the different event every time. I think you like the spontaneity of the new task.
I like learning new things too. So like after I filmed MasterChef, I thought I wanted to be a YouTube chef. So I bought a camera, I learned videography, I learned video editing, right?
Dude.
Then I've been helping my brother with his business, Active NorCal, and we had a podcast for a bit. So I had to teach myself, sound engineering, podcast editing, how to set all that up. So I learned how to do that. And I like the thing is that when you have a lot of different skill sets that you can do, it's hard to choose one.
I feel you on that.
Trying to do it all is hard too. So, I'm still trying to figure it out. I have grandiose goals, right? For myself. And so we're just trying to attain those and just figure it out. I'm trying to not sweat the small stuff. Just take things, say yes as many times as you can and stay positive and just know that everything's going to work itself out.
It does. It always does. Especially when you just keep your eye on the prize. It's a bummer that you overcooked your steak for All Stars because I feel like we would have had a good time on that show together.
Honestly though, Derrick, I was not in a place mentally to really compete then. I could tell. I was in such a low mental health place. Like I had just been hired by this winery in Lodi, and they hired me to be their chef. And so it was this phenomenal opportunity, but I just knew that they were gonna screw me over at some point, and they did. And I even talked to some of the other contestants there about this, and I'm like, I just know they're gonna screw me, and they totally did, and it was fine. It all worked out for the best, but I was unsure about this new opportunity that I just accepted, and it did. The negativity came to fruition, but my brain was there. I remember listening to this country album while I was there. I'm not even a big country music fan, but I listened to it on repeat, and I'm glad that I did, because they say don't listen to music that you want to love for the rest of your life when you're in your darkest. And so anytime I hear a song from that album, I remember being in that hotel room in quarantine, just being infinitely depressed. And so I wasn't in a mental place to really compete. And I hadn't cooked professionally in a couple of years. And I'm loved that I did it because I got to meet all of you guys in person.
Yeah.
I got to, watching you as the season that I watched, that I kind of built the show and how I prepared for the show, I thought you should have won also. But Claudia lived in San Diego where I lived, and I was proud that she won. But I definitely remember thinking wow, this is kind of a Hollywood shocker, because you were kind of the guy to beat for the whole season. Dude,
it's tough. It's one of the hardest things mentally that I don't know if I've fully overcome, but like, because it obviously still gets brought up. Like, you know, there's not a day that goes by that I don't hear it from some corner of the world that I should have won.
Right.
And being there, being in the moment, like that pork belly and watermelon dish, I think is still one of the most sophisticated dishes to ever be on the MasterChef stage because of what I did and how just like smart and complex it was, but how there was also a story behind it. And it just like nothing Claudia did was as good as that dish. So it was really hard for me. And I watched Gordon Ramsay clean the fucking plate. Like he ate that whole plate. He tastes so much food all season, all day, every day. Like I've never seen him eat a whole entire plate. He ate the whole fucking plate.
Well, I'll say this. I've said this to anybody that'll ask and anybody that'll listen. One of the best things that ever happened to me in my entire life was to not win MasterChef. And so
Sure.
If you don't know that, you should, because you know that there are limitations once you win. You know, there are restrictions put on you once you win, and we don't have a lot of those. I will say that Dara was so phenomenally outstanding.
Yeah.
That I've never felt more confident that the right person won in that back to win it season. And it also made me proud to be part of the show, knowing that she won, because I know how good she is. She was across the hall for me.
Yo, she's phenomenal. Also,
she graduated my culinary school, the best culinary school in the world, baking and pastry, top of her class.
Yeah.
After she was on MasterChef Junior, and like having the pastry background, it gives you a leg up because she can also cook regular, you know, savory food better than 95% of the people that have ever lived.
No, she definitely, like, that's when that last episode filmed, when that season ended, I had no qualms or bad feelings. The only thing that I wish is that I look at it like this. The only way they were going to get me out, like me versus the other person on my own merit, I'm going to beat everyone next to me. But the challenge I go out on is a challenge that has nothing to fucking do with cooking. It's this wall. It's this whole yelling to the other side. I mean, it's like the most bullshit, like fake TV thing ever. Hey, MasterChef, nobody likes the wall challenge. I think it's degrading to the show. That's the only way they were getting me out, because especially when I went and watched the rest of the season, the next 4 challenges, like I would have won all of those. And I just feel like I had a finale menu. I still have it. I haven't done it and posted it anywhere. And I've chatted with Dara about it, and like I just feel bad for the fans of MasterChef, because if I would have been in that finale, it would have, like, the fans were just robbed of one of the greatest finales of all time, because it would have been like Christian serving fucking banana pudding. Like, get the fuck out of here, dude. Like, that
a lot of people. So like I got to leave early enough to where I didn't see most of the drama, which is great. I still have a good relationship with everybody, but there's some people that don't like each other. I mean, from my original season, but especially from the Back to Win It season.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, dude, it got weird, because it was like there were people that everything was changing constantly. It was like one day we were allowed to go down to the bar. The next day we were not. One day we were allowed to go to the pool. The next day we were not. One day we were allowed to go to the gym. The next day we were not. Then they built us a gym in a hotel room, which was like they wanted us to be grateful for. But have you ever tried to run 5 miles on a treadmill in a tiny little box? There's no oxygen. It's like, I appreciate that you tried to help us, but this is actually worse for us. And then, you know, then there was just like people breaking rules and not getting in trouble. And then other people breaking rules and getting in trouble. And then there was like, you know, Tommy fucking shit talking everybody. And it was just a lot of, there was a lot more, there was just a lot more drama because I think there was just more at stake for everybody. And it was also, obviously, we had all been there before. So we all had a plan. We all had a idea of how it should go. And it was not going the way anybody wanted it to go. And then, yeah, like did you guys on your season have the Black Apron challenges?
Yeah, where if you don't win
you had a chance to redeem yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they took that was gone. The fans hate that. I mean, I see that posted everywhere. Bring back the Black Apron challenges.
I got eliminated on a Black Apron challenge.
Yeah, and see, my whole thing is I'll send everyone home from the Black Apron challenge. Like 1-to-1, you're not beating me. Like you're just like you're not. And if you are, it ain't because of the food. I don't know, and that's where my arrogance is. But I backed it up every time. Like I had the most Black Apron challenges from my season, and I sent everyone home. And I said it. I was like, I'll send everyone home in this Black Apron. So it got real catty real fast because like everyone just thought they were hot shit, and there was a giant separation of talent in that. There was people that were really good, and then there was people like, you're like, why is that person still going through? Like, it didn't make sense.
No, for sure. And I think that there's a little of that in all cooking shows. And the one thing that I don't love about MasterChef is the fact that the challenges themselves, it really takes, it's like, let's see if we could take away all of the fun in cooking. Yeah. Let's just take all of the pleasure of cooking and make it all stressful and not fun at all. Whereas like Top Chef as a show, I think that is the best cooking show out there. And there's not even a close second because they are chefs. They're all given the same criteria. They get to make a prep list the night before. They do it together. They go shopping. They all go together. That's what being a chef is. Not opening a mystery basket and seeing ingredients and seeing who can come up with a tasty dish with these random ingredients. That is not what being a chef is. That is a talent in and of itself, for sure. For sure. But that's not the way I enjoy cooking. I like to plan things out and be methodical. Just like you're talking about your finale dishes. Like how much time did you enjoy spending planning those? That's fun to do. Doing it in your head in 30 seconds to present a dish in 45 minutes sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I enjoy the creativity that you have to come up with when you get given.
It's a skill.
I have so much fun with the mystery box.
It was 7 years ago yesterday. It was aired that I won my first mystery box. I just came up on my memories yesterday.
What was that dish? What did you make?
I made fried chicken with, I called them JoJo's. They're just thick cut French fries and a broccoli slaw.
Why do you call them JoJo's? You're naming a dish again.
Yeah, so up here in Northern California, when you go to like any, and it's pretty much everywhere now, but any gas station will have thick cut, potato wedges, and they call them JoJo's. And so, the MasterChef's big on coming up with stories. And I would go. My dad was a fly fishing guide, so he would take me fly fishing. Every year he'd take me out of school, me and my brother, one day each separately. We'd get something at the deli and we'd go fishing. He'd give me a cigar. I'd be like 12 years old. It was a whole thing. And so I'd get fried chicken, this broccoli slaw, and JoJo's. And so that was kind of my fishing meal. And it won the mystery box. I don't know.
Nice. Did you do like a quick brine or anything on the chicken?
No. The thing is that one of the things that people don't understand is a lot of times there's 30, 45 minutes between the time you finish your dish and when it's presented and the chefs eat it. I cooked right next to Adam, who had a magnificent ramen dish, but he had a soft cooked egg cut open on it. And 45 minutes after you have a soft cooked egg exposed to oxygen, it doesn't look nearly as good. So while his was a much better dish cooked wise, it wasn't as presentable 45 minutes later. So, I'm sure he was probably a little not pleased, and his was a much better, like more technical dish when it comes down to it. But
Yeah,
I
but
know mine was tasty.
technical doesn't always mean more flavor.
That's true. I know mine tasted good.
You know, I mean, my smashburger that I've been selling is like, you know, it's like 5 ingredients, and it's just cooked right. You know, so
that's what's most important: simplicity, good ingredients, and just doing things right. I follow so many like local cooks that are trying to just do way too much. It's just like, dude, take half of those ingredients off. Like you're just adding things just to add things. Like there needs to be a purpose for all ingredients.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Yeah, it is. But you have to go. I feel like all chefs have to go through that process.
Yes,
on their own. They have to learn
learn that.
Yeah, you got to learn where that line is, and because you want to push that line too. You want to find out where is too much and where's not enough, and find that sweet spot,
right?
Because that's where the magic is for sure. But I think we all have to go through that too much process.
Yeah, right. That for me, I experienced that in and around MasterChef because I just didn't know. Yeah. Right? You don't know what you don't know, and it wasn't until I really get into the Michelin star culinary school stuff that you start to know like how much you don't know.
Yeah. Well, on that topic, I mean, is there anything from MasterChef that like you still use in your day-to-day life? Anything you learned?
That's a great question. So one of the things that people always ask is like, do they teach you how to cook in when you're on MasterChef? And like the answer is kind of yes and no, right? So in my season, there was an episode where we weren't told this, but what happened is there were different boxes put in and we got to choose, and it was a different cut of beef. And I mean, it went from like a ribeye to bull testicles, right? And so you don't know what you're gonna get. And so we all have to cook something different, but all of these different meats have different cooking times. And so when we're all limited to the certain amount of time, a lot of people will be put at a disadvantage because you can't cook this meat in that amount of time. So they taught us how to use a pressure cooker.
Right. All
right. And so they bring us into the like test kitchen and they teach us how to use a pressure cooker because they know that in the next couple of days, some of us are going to need to use pressure cooker or we're not going to be able to finish or complete our dishes. I didn't know how to use a pressure cooker before that day. So that's a good answer. Well, also, I got eliminated on the cannoli challenge. I learned how to cook cannolis, clearly not well, but I still did. I learned how to cook cannolis there. But do I use those in the day-to-day? No, I own a pressure cooker. I never use it. I have cannoli rollers things, hate cannolis. The only reason I cook them is to spite MasterChef and just say my dish was awesome. I know it was. I stand for it. But I only had 4 cannolis. I was supposed to present 6. So that's why I got eliminated.
That's funny. Yeah. So they did not teach us how to use a pressure cooker. I remember first challenge. I remember Wildman Steven pulling out a pressure cooker, dropping it on the stove and just using it. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. I think
he doesn't get enough credit. People think he's just this crazy guy. That man is
first of all,
mind works differently. He has this artistic sense to him and his ability. I mean, what was it, Rabbit and Donuts that he got that? I mean, like that blew Gordon away. I mean,
look, he came in super wild about it. You should go listen to our podcast.
I saw clips.
He is brilliant. He is a mad scientist. He is definitely misunderstood, but he came in really hot on the Back to Win season, and I don't know where that came from or why he was doing that, because if he'd have been a little more chill, they wanted him to go further for sure.
I agree with you.
But he came in with this weird.
And Gordon didn't like it. That was what. Honestly, like a couple of us felt kind of safe because we thought that he definitely was going to go home because he was so
crazy,
just out there, and like, and Gordon kept saying he kept pissing Gordon off, and that's just the one thing you don't want to do. But he was just being himself.
No, he was being over. That wasn't
he was over the top, and you're right. He had something going on.
because he was exaggerating. Because I've stayed friends with Steven over the years. He was exaggerating it for camera. He explained to me that they were wanting more out of him, so that's what he thought they wanted, and he kind of took it the wrong way. And we stopped production for Gordon to yell at him that didn't make camera. That shit was crazy. But back to what I was saying, Steven pulled out a pressure cooker, and he was already a fucking head of us. And I was like, shit, I got to learn how to use that. And so, the next challenge that I could, I pulled out a pressure cooker and just like tried to figure out how it worked, and then sure enough, like the first piece of equipment I bought when I got home after MasterChef was a pressure cooker. But that's because
I don't use it a lot because I like to cook things for a long time.
Yeah, well,
that's what I enjoy. I don't like to cook for speed. I like to cook for flavor and for everything else. I like to take my time. So I don't use a pressure cooker, but I have one if I wanted to.
Well, look, the art to the pressure cooker is learning how to get the same flavor of a long cook in a short amount of time. And that's really I think that's really what it's all about. And that test kitchen, we definitely, like, when you make it to the finale, you get a week to put your menu together. They start telling you, like, when you're top 6, they tell you after each challenge, they're like, hey, go back to your hotel room, start thinking of your finale dishes. Like, what do you want it? Like, start thinking about it, put it together, like, get it organized, because you guys, you're now at you're at a 20% chance or a 15% chance of making it to the finale. And each day that percentage increases, right? So I had already had that pork belly dish before I showed up. I said, if I make it to the finale, this is going to be my appetizer, the pork belly and watermelon 3-ways. And so you get to practice your finale dish because they want you to push the boundaries, but you also can't fail in the finale. Like, you can't go in there.
They want you to succeed because the show looks good when you cook well.
And you also just can't run out of time on the finale.
That would be awful.
So, long story short, we come up with I make it to the finale and I got to present my menu, and I go to Chef Avery and I'm like, yo, like, I want to do this pork belly watermelon 3-ways. She's like, I love this, but she's like, your pork belly is going to come down to the fucking wire. And in the test kitchen, it did. I got it done like right at the hour. My entree, same thing, right at the hour. My dessert was, what I wanted to show was everything I learned on my MasterChef journey. It was all different levels of pastry technique, because our season was the first season we had Christina Tosi. So it was very pastry heavy, our season.
Yep. I remember that.
So my whole thing with the dessert was, I learned all these techniques throughout the season, and I put this dish together to show them all off, and it's also a composed dish.
Good story.
And so in my practice, an hour and 25 minutes was my first run. I was 25 minutes over, and they were like, you got to change your dessert. I was like, I'm not changing my dessert. So we got 3 practice rounds before we went and actually did the finale. So the next day we show up and we do our 3 again. We do each one again. And my dessert time was an hour and 10 minutes on my second. And they're like, Derrick, you got to shave.
So pushing it, buddy.
You got to shave 10 minutes. I was like, I understand. I was like, I got one more practice. I was like, I know where I can shave the 10 minutes. Like, okay. So then the last practice, I'm at an hour and 5 minutes. And they were like, we were having a meeting. All the producers were standing around me going, What can you do? And then Adeline, the best person in the moment, comes in and she goes, everyone, you're forgetting about adrenaline. His adrenaline is going to get him to do this in the amount of time. And she hit the clipboard and everyone laughed. And it was like, we're leaving this up to adrenaline.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's really what happened?
Yeah. And so I went into that dessert round knowing I have never completed this dish in an hour. And then in all the practice dishes, my ISI cake, I had a small 0.75 liter
Tip?
ISI.
Oh, the smaller. Yeah.
On set, they gave me a 1.75. I didn't know how to adjust my CO2 or nitrogen for that size, and I only had my recipe quantity, so I didn't know the adjustment, so I just made it the same way I did in the small one. In the big one, it froze my batter.
Oh.
And so I ended up having to fuck around with that thing longer than I should have and wasted so much time and still somehow came out with a dessert. But yeah, that part fucked with me.
I can see that because I can see that happening. The fact that they gave you a different size is ridiculous though, because they're right next to, it's just like, it's right there. Just use the same.
And it makes you wonder, was it an accident on production or was it on purpose?
Drama sells, baby. Drama sells.
It was dramatic. Okay, guilty pleasure food. We were talking about food before. I got that in my notes here.
So I have a couple answers, but I guess if we're going to stick with the theme of smashburger, I have in the last few weeks gone to Buffalo Wild Wings and gotten their smashburger on Wednesday after I play golf. It's not terrible. It's at Buffalo Wild Wings, you can get like a 32-ounce beer for like $4. And so, last Wednesday I sat and I had a smashburger and watched a hockey game at a Buffalo Wild Wings. And did I feel guilty about it? No, but I'd say that's a good guilty pleasure answer.
Interesting.
Also, like McDonald's breakfast is hard for me to avoid. That's also a guilt, but I haven't had that in a while. So that I'm trying to like wean myself off of sausage McMuffins.
Gross.
Bro, they're so good.
My first job was McDonald's. What was your first job?
I fueled airplanes at a small airport in Redding, California.
No way.
That was another thing that I wanted to bring up on here. The production's decision to say that I was from my hometown and not San Diego, where I was living at that time, was an awesome thing for me.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. They did the same thing.
I didn't win. I didn't even make top 10. But I went to a bar a couple of weeks ago, and I walk in, and the bartender loses his mind because Brien O'Brien from MasterChef just walked into his bar, and I was like, "Bro, I didn't even make top 10." He's like, "Yeah, but you're like the local, like you were in all the local news," and that's true. And so I did bring a sense of pride to the area that I grew up, and I now moved back to Northern California. I'm up here now, and so I'm glad that they did that. That was something that I didn't love that they did at the time, but now I'm thrilled that they did that.
Yeah, they did the same thing with me. I had been living in LA. They were like, "Hey, LA chefs, it doesn't go well." They're like, "Would you be willing to represent your hometown?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I love my hometown." Like I've always been like, "Don't forget where you come from."
Totally.
And since I've gone back and helped my hometown on a hurricane cleanup and disaster and charities and all kinds of shit. Never forget where my hometown. But yeah, that was huge on production. They were like, "You should say you're from your hometown," and I was like, "All right." Which all my LA friends were like, "Wait, why does it say you're from Florida?" And I was like, "You'll see."
It goes a long way.
Yeah, it does. All right. Let's play a little game and then we can wrap this up because this has been a great conversation. And I think we should save and actually come back and do a round 2. What I've been doing lately is asking ChatGPT to come up with rapid fire questions based off of you. Like I'm like, hey, I need 10 rapid fire this or that questions for Chef Brien O'Brien.
That's awesome. All right, let's hear it.
So we'll do 10, and then we're going to jump to the 5 funny ones. Sweet or savory?
That's a tough one because I get more like inspiration from sweet dishes, but I am a savory cook. So I guess I'll go savory.
See, I was just like, I didn't even think you would think about it. I'm like,
No, like you asked Adrian in that interview, like what inspires him. And the thing that came to my mind is Christina Tosti's cereal milk ice cream. Like that is one of the most inspiring dishes to me. And that's a sweet dish.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a brilliant thing, right? It's like,
agreed.
It's like one of those things. It's where like you're looking at the space, you're looking at the culinary world, and you're like, you're in this, you're into sweets, and you're like, what's it missing? And she nailed nostalgia in a fucking dish, because we all have that memory as a kid with the cereal milk, with your favorite cereal, and nothing sells better than nostalgia, and she fucking nailed it.
That's so funny that you say that. I totally agree. I there was a wine that I used to describe for the winery that I used to work for. It tasted like a Granny Smith apple, and we would pair it with this dark chocolate caramel. And it sounds like a dish that doesn't make sense, right? Dark chocolate and white wine, like it just seems clashy, you know, dark chocolate, red wine. But when you had it together, it was very much a candied apple. So the way that I would kind of build up my presentation of that wine is I would talk about how it brings me back to nostalgia. I say I've always wanted to open a restaurant called Nostalgia, but everybody has different nostalgic dishes that bring them back to some point in their life, right? But there are some dishes that are can be considered universally nostalgic, and I think a candied apple is one of them. You know, I remember being 8 or 9 years old and going to the local county fair and buying a Granny Smith apple that's been dipped in caramel and drizzled with dark chocolate. I remember doing that, but I mean, that was probably the last time I had a candied apple, when I was 8 or 9. And so using nostalgia in food is inspiring to me. And I think there are certain dishes that are kind of universally nostalgic. And I do think cereal milk is one of those.
Yeah, it's brilliant. All right. Creating a new dish from scratch or perfecting a classic recipe?
I like to take like a comfort food and high class and bring them together. So like your series, like the Hey Chef, I have an idea. I love that shit because a lot of those ideas are taking really classically comfort food dishes and adding a really high end component to it. That's the shit that I love. So I like cooking classic cuisines, going to culinary school and doing all of the different classic dishes that every French cook. I loved doing that, but I also like transforming those dishes with a new comfortable component to it. So it's kind of a little of both.
Yeah. Okay. Italian cuisine or Japanese cuisine?
I'll say Italian just because it's a little bit more versatile. That's tough to say, but for me, there are ingredients that are in Japanese cooking that are they're specific. Whereas there's so many ingredients used in Italian cuisine that can be used in so many different things. I don't know. Fish sauce is an example, I guess. Garlic is a lot more universal than fish sauce, I guess. Ginger is less universal than garlic. Not that they don't both use both, but I would say I'm just the comment's gonna just destroy me. I'll just stick with Italian.
That's funny. You're funny. Okay. Let's see. It's funny that after talking with you this whole time, like the questions that ChatGPT came up with based off of you, mastering one cuisine in depth or being proficient in multiple cuisines?
Multiple cuisines, 100%. I'll tell you, I absolutely, this is true. The second year of my culinary school program, I didn't do. The first year is the fundamentals and how to cook for a lot in a little amount of people. The second year are the fun classes, cuisines of Asia, Mediterranean, baking and pastry. And I didn't necessarily need to take those classes. You can read a book about Italian food and learn the fundamentals of Italian cuisine. So that was less important to me than learning the fundamentals of everything. And so I purposefully chose to learn a broad technique driven approach to food as opposed to a cuisine driven approach to
which you feel pays off longer.
It just was more what I was interested in.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a right or wrong.
So this comes down to two. This is funny. These are two different styles of cooking that both take time, which you're all about putting time into these cooks.
Love time.
Sous vide cooking or traditional braising?
Traditional braising. I have a sous vide. I use it all the time, but I like a traditional braise more. The thing is with when you're sous videing, a lot of people, it comes down to the like reverse sear and like, there's just I think braising and getting the true Maillard effect on the outside of a roast, if you're talking about a protein, or caramelization if you're talking about, other things. But I think that tastes better than a sous vide. Sous vide to me it's a set it and forget it, and it's almost like I'm paying less attention to it than if it's a roast in the oven. I'm paying very close attention to it because you can overcook it. Whereas a sous vide is a set it and forget it, and it's kind of easy. I do appreciate sous vide and it being it's kind of gastronomic, it's trying to be science, but I
like it because it's just another chef for me. It's like I am alone all the time making so many things. I'm like, I'm going to sous vide this because I need time.
It's a set it and forget it thing. I totally agree.
Okay. Innovative plating or robust flavor?
Flavor over plating every time. But I mean, you could do both.
Yeah, that was.
But yeah, no,
that
flavor
was a dumb
first.
ChatGPT.
That to me that's a no brainer. I think a lot of people. You look at chefs on the internet and just on Instagram, and after MasterChef, I just wanted to take one really, really, really good photograph of my food per week. And so I did things in that cooking process that maybe not as yummy, but it would have looked good. And so, but when it comes to me serving my food to other people, flavor is the absolute number one thing.
Yeah. This is a good question. Sourcing local seasonal ingredients or having access to rare global ingredients?
Local seasonal all the time. Rare global's cool, but like I cook local seasonal. I go to the local farmers market here in Sacramento, Midtown, every single Saturday. I know what's in season. My buddy, he got an executive chef job in New York City, and I bought a poster of just the seasonal ingredients just to kind of give him inspiration so he could hang it in his office, because like it's important to know what's in season so that you can drive inspiration from it. So that's local, season, hyper local, hyper seasonal. I'm all about that life.
I'm so bougie. I'm like, send me the uni from Japan.
So that's the thing. Like you're like, send me the squid ink and the uni, and like I'm like, yeah, that stuff's cool. I do want to experiment with squid ink a little bit more. But what's funny is dating a vegan. Squid ink is one of those things like honey that like it's not vegan, but like it like kind of, it's not, should be. Honey is in a different level, and she eats honey, and she eats smashburgers, so she's vegan leaning, but
sure.
Yeah, hyper seasonal, hyper local is me all day long.
Okay, let's skip to some funny ones. Burnt toast or undercooked pasta? Which one would you rather eat? And we're not talking al dente. We're talking undercooked, sticks between your teeth.
I guess burnt toast, but they're both acceptable. I mean, I've had both.
Neither are acceptable. Neither are acceptable.
Well, that's fair. But if it's, I guess I'd rather have burnt toast than undercooked. If it's at a restaurant, I've never sent back a dish, maybe ever, but
I don't believe that.
I don't know. I just don't. Whatever. I just won't go back to the restaurant. I'm also not a Yelp reviewer.
No one should be a Yelp reviewer. Fuck Yelp.
I know.
Okay. Cooking in complete silence or cooking with a mariachi band playing in the background?
Mariachi. Bring me the mariachi. There's a local watering hole down the street, and there's this one guy. He comes and he just plays mariachi, and sometimes I'll have one or two extra Irish whiskeys, and I'll just buy a random person a mariachi just because I enjoy seeing people kind of just feel weird about having a mariachi play for them.
Dude,
but I love mariachi.
I think this is why we're having such a good conversation and why we get along is because I am the complete opposite. I'm like, I need it quiet in the kitchen because I want to listen to the food cooking. Like I get hypersensitive about the food that's going in the pan. Like I am like, I need to hear it sear. I know if I can hear if it's overcooking or undercooking. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Okay.
No, yeah, you can hear different levels. I mean, I can hear a fryer and know if it's good, doing well or not.
Right.
And that's a lot of experience. And that's just knowing that what you're doing when you're frying is you're actually cooking out the actual moisture. That moisture turns to bubbles. And once those bubbles dissipate, you're getting close to. So, yeah, I mean, there is a lot of components to listening, but I also like to have fun. So, bring on the mariachi, a couple cervezas.
There you go. All right. This is an interesting one. Accidentally using salt instead of sugar, or dropping an entire dish right before serving it.
Okay, so right before serving it,
like if you're walking it to the pass and then you drop it.
So 5-second rule or salt, sugar. There's no good answer to that, right? 5-second rule. I'll go 5-second rule because at least that I can. It's 5-second rule. I mean, it's a universal law.
Okay.
I've never salted when I should sugar or vice versa. I'm sure it's bad, but I've never done it.
It happened to Leslie season 5. Okay, wearing a chicken costume while cooking or using only tiny utensils. If you say chicken costume, I want a photo.
That's like full on like mascot, right?
Yeah.
Tiny utensils.
Tiny utensils. I agree.
I could breathe.
I can breathe.
I mean, I feel like you wouldn't even be able to use your hand. I don't know. Yeah, let's go tiny utensils. I can make it work.
The last one is got to be the stupidest question I've ever heard, but we'll just go with it. Being a guest judge on a kid's cooking show or having to cook with a random mystery ingredient every hour for a day.
Oh, I'll be the judge on a kid's cooking show all day long.
I knew
you. MasterChef Junior. So you talked about it earlier. I don't watch MasterChef anymore. Like I didn't watch it before I went on. I watched your season, the season after you, my season, and maybe a little of the season after. But I'm it's not the show that I watch every week. I will say though, on MasterChef Junior, Asher, who was on, his father was on my season of MasterChef. He's the fat pastor. Shout out Sean. And so I did enjoy watching his son do well. It's kind of part of the family, keep it in the MasterChef family. And anytime a kid, a young cook or, comes up to me and they're like, oh my God, I love to cook. It's like, do you want me to be on MasterChef Junior? Cause I can make that happen or at least give you a good chance of doing it. Cause I love seeing the kids do well.
That's awesome. Well, Brien O'Brien, I loved this chat, man. We got more out of this than I expected. I appreciate your time. I do have to cut it short because I got to go get in the kitchen and I got to walk this dog.
It's not short, dude. We've been here for an hour and a half. I got stuff I kind of want to do too. But, dude, always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, let's have
happy to do it again.
Yeah, let's schedule it again in a few months and catch up and just, we don't have to even do questions. We can just sit and chat.
Maybe do some shots if we're in the same area.
We'll make that happen. All right, dude.
Derrick, thanks for having me, my friend. Take care.
Thank you.